Thanks for joining us on News 6 and clickorlando.com. Today we're talking about interest rates. By now you've probably seen for the second time this year the Federal Reserve cut interest rates by 1/4 percentage point on Thursday. CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger is here now to break down what exactly that means for consumers and what could happen next. Jill, thanks for joining us. So let's start off with how much was, thank you. Let's start off with how much was cut this week. It was 1/4 point. Some people may have been hoping for a bigger cut, like 1/2 percentage point, which is what the Fed did last time. So why this lower cut this time?
You know, at the September meeting, Federal Reserve Chair Powell said that the policymakers, they wanted to get a, quote, good, strong start. It was the first cut after years of having high interest rates. So they started with this 1/2 percentage point cut, and that's larger than what we had seen in a while. So what we saw at this meeting yesterday was that the Fed telling us that economic growth is solid, the labor market might be easing some, but you know, the problem is the inflation rate is still higher than the central bank's target. So they kind of reverted back to what I would call their more normal or customary 1/4 percentage point cut at this meeting.
And we know after the last cut, mortgage rates really did not change a whole lot for people who may want to buy a home or refinance their mortgage rate. Should they expect rates to go down after this latest move?
Oh dear, I hate to be the bearer of bad news on this. You know, the Fed rates, those are short term in nature. And so that means the rate on, say, a credit card balance or a new auto loan or even a new business loan, that's a rate that you might see drop a little bit. But mortgage rates, they are linked to longer term bonds. And bonds, say a 10-year bond with the government, that is based on supply and demand. And what we have seen is that since the election, the yield, the interest rate on a 10-year treasury actually went up. And the reason that that is happening is that there is some worry that some of the Trump administration policies could lead to higher debt and deficits or maybe be inflationary. And so as a result, we have not seen progress on a 30-year mortgage rate. It's such a bummer for people looking for a home. I'm sorry, but that's probably going to persist for some time.
And speaking of the new administration, obviously the Federal Reserve will soon be under the Trump administration. So do we know yet what the fate of Chairman Powell will be once the new administration takes over?
You know, I like to describe Chairman Powell's relationship with President-elect Trump as it's complicated. Remember, then President Trump was the one who plucked Powell off the board to lead the Fed in early 2018. It was his appointment. But later in his administration, he kind of trash-talked Powell while he was still in office. And over the summer, the president-elect did seem to shift a little bit on Powell. But yesterday, when Jerome Powell was asked directly about whether he would resign his position if asked by the president-elect, Powell looked in the camera and quickly said no. And so that means that Chairman Powell will remain as chair until his term ends in May of 2026. At that time, the president can appoint somebody else. But, you know, Powell can stay on the board until his term ends until 2028. His chairmanship over in May of 26.
And we do know there is one final meeting this year. What do you expect to happen in December?
I think we'll probably get another 1/4 percentage point cut. And I don't see that really going off course unless there's some strange information. If we see a significant slowdown in economic data, then maybe there would be a 1/2. But I think it's much more likely that there will be a cautious 1/4 point cut at the December meeting.
All right, Jill Schlesinger, we appreciate you always walking us through some of these complicated matters. Thank you for spending some time with us today. You can catch Jill on CBS Mornings and the Evening News with Norah O'Donnell.